Good afternoon. It is January the 8th, 2017. Welcome to this week's weekly weather briefing. We have been in a deep freeze the last several days, and we are still in it as we speak. We have been in this deep freeze for several hours, multiple days, and we still have less than 24 hours ahead of us before we finally get above the freezing mark. Temperatures are hovering just below the freezing mark. It is 30.4 degrees at my house right now, and it is rising. These clouds that are moving in are not as thick as I would have expected them to be. We will continue to see an increase in clouds throughout the rest of today, and then we will see those clouds clearing back out tonight, allowing for those temperatures to drop. I figure there's a little bit more sunshine showing right now than anticipated. I did get the forecast right that we would have some high clouds coming in by sunrise, and that's what happened by sunrise. But I think these clouds are not thickening as quick as I would have liked them to. So those are why temperatures are just a few degrees warmer than anticipated today, but still many of us will stay below the freezing mark. I can't rule out a couple locations getting above the freezing mark. Right now, it's already got up to 30.6. And so, if that sun continues to poke through those clouds, a very overcast look, then we will begin to see those temperatures rise a little bit above freezing. Still very cold either way you look at it outside. Temperatures across the board in the mid to upper 20s is what this is showing. But like I said, it's a little bit above 30 degrees here at my house, and I'm right about here, right above where this 28 is showing, and it is not probably 28 degrees there or 21 degrees in Henderson. I think these temperatures are a little bit colder than shown, or colder than actually the code. I think these temperatures are colder than what the air actually is outside. We have a lot to get to for this week's briefing, so let's go ahead and get into it. A lot to track over the next several days. I'll just start out by saying that these next couple of days, if not the next several weeks, are going to be extremely busy on any forecaster's part. We have a lot of systems to watch, a lot of moving parts to the weather forecast, and so we're going to have to watch each system individually. And it would be okay if it was springtime because we wouldn't have to be worrying about any other types of precipitation that would give the forecaster even more headaches. But since it is winter, we have to deal with those headaches right now, and that is what is happening over the next several weeks. We have our first storm system moving through on Tuesday morning, afternoon. We will have a chance of some rain moving in. I'll give you a closer look at that in just a second. And then we see another resurge of moisture on Wednesday afternoon, and then that moves through. What the models are beginning to show now is a storm system that is potentially a major storm system coming into our region on this upcoming weekend. This could last 3 or 4 days, according to some models. Some of the models start precipitation off on Thursday and continue precipitation all the way through next Tuesday evening. That would be every bit of, that would be 1, 2, 3, that would be 5 days worth of precipitation. And not only is it 5 days worth of precipitation, but some people could be getting 5 days worth of frozen precipitation. Right now, the GFS model has been very consistent on frozen precipitation, mainly ice, in parts of Missouri and Illinois with this storm system. I'm very confident that this storm system, this upcoming weekend, Thursday through potentially Sunday or Monday of next week, maybe even Tuesday if the GFS is correct, that there will be a wintry side to this system. But the questions are, where does this wintry side of the system set up at? Will it end up over western Kentucky? Will it end up over Missouri and Illinois? Will it end up all the way in the south like we had this past weekend? Or will it end up well north of us? The potential is there that we do see ice in our region, but we just don't know where this system is going to go. What I have not seen in several years is the GFS ensembles come into agreement a week out on this storm system. I'll show you that in a second. I looked at them, the 12Z run and this last several runs of the ensembles have been very consistent and very in agreement with each other. A lot of times when the ensembles are in agreement, you have a very good forecast for you, but I don't like to see the ensembles in agreement a week out and then call it a forecast. I see the ensembles agreement, and that is good news. That is one step to the forecast. That is at least one good news to this part of the forecast, that we do have some agreement coming into the models. I mean, that does take a little bit of the headache away, but what we don't know yet is those ensembles. If they're in agreement, then that's very good. but we need to watch where those ensembles start to take it. That means that if they're in agreement now, which is the first key, the second step is to see where each ensemble, where the mean of those ensembles take this storm system. Will they all trend together a little bit north? Will they all trend together a little bit south? Questions remain to that, and so we still have well over 84 hours to track this system, and so we will probably have to do an update. If this system arrives like anticipated on Thursday or Friday, then we could be seeing a update on this video or on this storm system coming out in the form of a video this upcoming Thursday or Friday. If this storm system were to come through a little bit later than anticipated, then perhaps this coming Saturday or Sunday would be the day that we would have to do it. Speaking of that, I will be out of town this upcoming weekend, so we probably won't have a lot of time. I will probably have to make the upcoming weekly weather briefing this upcoming Thursday or Friday, so that will work out well. That we will be able to do that video, perhaps a little bit more in depth on that storm system. There is also potential that we end up with a lot of rain on this system. What's going to happen is a boundary is going to set up, and it is going to be a very sharp contrast in temperatures from the north of the boundary, where cold air will be in place, to the south of the boundary, where we will have warm air in place. We could see anywhere from 50s, maybe even 60s in Memphis, to 30s and freezing rain or sleet, maybe even some snow in St. Louis. That's a very big contrast, and it's not going to be a cold front. It is a cold front, but when it becomes stationary, we call it a stationary front. So technically, it's a cold front, but it just sits where it is, and so then it becomes a stationary front where you have cold air to the north and warm air to the south. What's going to happen is several waves of precipitation are going to ride along this front. Now, more than likely, we're not going to see 4 or 5 days worth of precipitation constantly. There are going to be breaks, of course, but it just depends on when each little wave goes and where each little wave tracks. Will some of the waves be strong enough to pull this a little bit south? Will some of them be strong enough to push it a little bit north? A lot of questions with this system. So what I'm going to tell you now is, please do not be looking at your apps. This is for Hickory, Kentucky, and this is the Weather Channel. I trust this when it comes to short range, but I do not trust this when it's almost a week out in time. Notice how it has rain showers in the forecast, with temperatures getting down into the 30s almost every single night. That's very close. Those are very, very close to the freezing mark. So something that we have to watch. It has daytime highs in the low 40s for Friday, and then it has them up into the 50s by Saturday and Sunday. So we have a lot of questions that remain to this system, but please do not look at your apps. If we are dealing with ice next weekend, then the models don't handle ice or snow very well at all. And so please watch a forecaster. Do not watch your apps where they are computer generated and they are going to change 6 to 10 times a day. I mean, they change every time a new model run comes out, and there's only 4 model runs on some of the models during a day, but the apps change more than that. I don't understand why they change more than that, but they just do. Now, what's going to happen is once we get to around Saturday, the reason why your apps are showing a warm-up, or they're showing a cool down on Thursday night into Friday, and then they show a warm-up on Saturday and Sunday, and then they show another cool down afterwards. The reason they're doing that is because we're going to have a area of low pressure. You see this little nudge right here in those black lines. Those are going, or the low pressure is going to form, and it's going to move through sometime on Sunday or so. Now, it's not going to be a very strong area of low pressure. That's why the only way, when it doesn't show it on the map, the only way you can track that low pressure is through these black lines that kind of nudge northward like that. That's where you would find that low pressure system. Wherever that low pressure tracks, if it tracks somewhere like this, where my mouse is going, then we will end up with cold air remaining on our side, and we could see more wintry weather. But there's a good chance right now, as it stands, we're looking at plain old rain for this entire system. We could end up with very, very high amounts. We would have to worry about flash flooding. There's also potential that we just see some wintry weather from this. If you get wintry weather from this system, then you better be watching this thing closely. I mean, if you end up with wintry weather from this system, if you end up on the wintry side, there is potential that you see extreme amounts of wintry weather with this system. Because, and I'm not over exaggerating this a week out, I'm just telling you the facts that are going to be with this system. There's going to be a wintry side. Wherever it ends up, you can end up with some very heavy wintry amounts. If you don't get wintry, and you get rain, you could end up with some very heavy rain amounts. The details to the system are still needing to be worked out. Let's go ahead and look at let's go ahead and look at this upcoming. Let's see. This is the NAM model, so let's go ahead and get into depth on the system that is coming through on Tuesday and Wednesday. There is a very, very, very low risk of severe weather with this, but there's still a risk, so we still have to watch it. Wind fields are going to be very high with this system. That's what I'm showing you now. Going into Tuesday, we're going to see an increase in winds, mainly Tuesday morning, and then they start to die out by Tuesday afternoon. We could see some gusts up to 25, 30 miles an hour. We see a break in winds on Wednesday night, or rather Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. Then we see that increase in wind speed, probably not as strong as on Tuesday, but we see an increase in wind speed on Wednesday evening. We have 2 rounds of precipitation, one coming on Tuesday evening, other one coming on Wednesday evening, breaks in between. Let's look at our dew points. Dew points are going to be high during this event as well. That is another ingredient besides winds that we need for severe weather. The dew points are going to be rising into the 50s and 60s by the time we get to the Wednesday event, and so we do have some risk for some severe weather as we go into this week. What we don't have a lot of is CAPE values. CAPE is a measure of energy in the atmosphere, energy for storms to work with, and we do not have a lot of CAPE to be working with this event. Going through Tuesday, we're going to be watching the, let's go ahead and get your key down here so you can see that. Here's your timestamp up here. This would be Tuesday at 9 a.m. in the morning. Once we get to 6 p.m., well, this will be 9 p.m. in the evening on Wednesday. I mean, look at this. We're going through both events with no CAPE at all to work with. If we see a little bit more sunshine, then we would have to update accordingly, and we could see an increased chance of severe weather. So we'll watch it very closely, but as of right now, hardly anything stands for severe weather as we go through this event. This is the ensembles for this upcoming weekend. I wanted to show you those. How much in agreement they are. Here's the mean of all of them. And I mean, I've never seen ensembles with a wintry system so much in agreement with each other this far out in time. So that is good news that they are coming into agreement. We just need to start to watch how the mean of all these, if they shift a little bit north or if they shift a little bit south. The last several runs, they've been staying exactly where they have been. No shifts north or south at all. So very good agreement right now, but I do expect some shifts going into the next couple of days because we do have this thing called the Arctic Oscillation. During January and February, the Arctic Oscillation, out of all the months in the year, January and February and March are the 3 months when the AO or Arctic Oscillation begin to the Arctic Oscillation drives the pattern most in January, February, March, our 3 main winter months for our area. And during this event, they're predicted to be around neutral or just slightly negative. When they're slightly negative, it suppresses storms a little bit further south, and so I do expect a little bit of a southward trend in the models with this event. Not saying it's going to happen, that's just what I'm expecting with this, so we'll have to watch that very closely. Temperatures with this coming week, we're watching us coming out of that deep freeze going into tomorrow. Temperatures in the low 40s, upper 30s for tomorrow, getting up into the 50s for Tuesday with a chance of rain, so we have to trade off our cold temperatures. We get warm temperatures, but then we replace the dry weather with rain chances. 60s for Wednesday, and then maybe even some mid-60s for Thursday. And then here's that boundary on Friday. Watch how much that boundary has such a contrast in temperatures, which is why it's going to make the forecast so difficult. One county to the next could be 2 different extremes. And then we see on Saturday that boundary possibly making a little bit further south, and then the boundary coming back a little bit northward on Sunday. That would be that area of low pressure, just depending on where it tracks. And then possibly the boundary coming back south. It's going to meander north and south for a while, and then we see by next Monday and then Tuesday staying about the same. These temperatures are going to change. These maps are going to change, so more than likely an update is coming. Notice our heavier stripe of precipitation over Missouri and Illinois. Question is, does this become frozen? This is the entire week's worth of precipitation, and my forecast, I issued this back in the beginning of November, or the end of November, beginning of December, that by the end of 2016, the drought would be wiped out in our area. And as you can see, it is completely gone. So that is some very good news to the situation.